Okay, and we're back, and we're so excited to have Dr. Mike Gaskell, who's the principal, Hammer School, I hope I said that right, Middle School, East Brunswick Public Schools. Mike, I'm going to get your photo up here because we have created that for you. So I want to show that. Super excited to have you. Super excited to hear what's going on over there for you. So I'm going to make sure you're unmuted. Can you speak up?
Yes, hello. Good afternoon, everybody.
Yeah, good to have you. So we have the next half hour to find out the things you're doing to go hybrid, kind of where you started at in spring, and then what's happening now in going into the fall, and sort of tell us your story. We would love to hear it.
Yeah, sure. So like everybody else in America, and especially here in the Northeast, we shut down rapidly in March. And there was a lot of unknowns at that time. A lot of, we really had to pull together efficiently and fast and give teachers the kind of PD that we never like to espouse, which is figure it out and we'll try to give you the best information we can. So these were not ideal circumstances, but sometimes the greatest opportunities come out of that. And one of the things I learned in that experience as an educational leader, working with teachers and helping them communicate to our community, is that you needed to be prepared to offer what I call pop-up PD. And pop-up PD is literally, obviously, this is something that 10 or more teachers are needing or having a problem with. I need to utilize my video resources, get them on a call, and show them how to do something. And then the other thing I did a lot of was created videos in a screencast software, which you can get just about anywhere. I use something called Loom, but there's many of them. And just continue to offer that support and assure them. A lot of the challenges in the spring, of course, were anxiety, and I haven't really seen that anxiety decrease. It's more changed. It's more changed because we're giving teachers the resources. Now, we had a whole summer to plan for this, and now we're in a hybrid model, which means 25% of our students are attending school at a time. And so there's very few students in the building. This is a large building of about 1,500 students and about 120 faculty, but only 25% of that. So 75%, and it's really higher than that because Governor Murphy offered families the choice to go all digital. We weren't allowed to require them to go hybrid. So about half of that 25% said, yes, we want to go all digital, which means 12%. Very small numbers in schools. So I did some PD with the teachers, focusing on doing what the reverse of what they're used to doing. And the reverse of that is they're used to teaching kids first in school and then using technology resources. So I really had to get them to flip that and say, think digitally first and how you're going to reach your 88% of kids at home, and then think about the kids in school. Not that we're making them second, but it's the order that we're looking at. So the pop-up PD helped with that, the screencast videos. I emphasized a lot to our community that we're all pioneers in this. And it's okay as a teacher or as a parent or as a kid to say, I don't get this, or this isn't working, or I can't see the video screen. And to just remember that we're all in this together. The teachers need to be comfortable with saying to the kids, I'm like on the same wavelength here in terms of learning this with you, and we're going to learn together. Kids are really responsive to that. When they hear an adult say something like that, it makes them feel like, oh, finally an adult who's speaking honestly. And that's important that the kids hear that from us. I think it also assures them. I talked a little bit earlier about anxiety and about how the anxiety levels are high, and social media only perpetuates that. So another thing I've been pushing a lot during this hybrid transition is to focus on the facts and not let the spiral of social media hysteria, take you into an illogical zone. And I just keep saying that over and over again and showing them the facts and reinforcing that. And then also asking the teachers to model the way that, I was a young vice principal when 9/11 happened. And all I can remember back then, I was a week into being a vice principal, is everybody's watching me. And I have a responsibility to model calm. So I think that's important that we continue to do that, because we're going to get through all this, and it's a unique environment with hybrid learning, but it certainly presents a unique circumstance. And, we're all, like I said, pioneers, and we're going to we're all going to do this together. We can't sit here and be divisive and argumentative and challenge each other. We've got to work together to make a hybrid model work. The hybrid model has been in place here now for 3 school days. We start school a little bit later up here in the Northeast, late after Labor Day. And to be perfectly honest with you, the teachers are kind of looking back and saying, this isn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. And that's because we did give them a lot of PD. We also are dismissing kids early from school. So while the dismissal process, they're essentially following a 4.5-hour day instead of a 6-hour day. So that extra hour and a half is time for teachers to work together, plan, troubleshoot, discuss some of their challenges and come up with some ideas. But the other thing I wanted to mention is how important it is to get everybody involved in the hybrid model moving, literally physically moving, like getting up and walking around and saying, let me go take 15 or 20 minutes and just get my legs moving. Because we're all sitting in front of computers for hours a day. And while that's not so great for your eyes, it's also not great for your stage. They say sitting is the new smoking. So we really need to get everybody moving. And I'm encouraging teachers to do that. I'm encouraging them to say to the kids, let's get up and take a 5-minute walk, and then we'll come back on this video session. And by the way, of course, movement also gets us thinking more creatively too. We know that there's research that shows that when you move the body, you move the mind. So there's a lot of factors that kind of come into this that aren't just about making it work digitally. It's the composite things I just kind of gave a big overview of that really makes everything coordinated to work, and just staying on that path,
Yeah, awesome. I'm imagining schools are going to need to be sending out jump ropes, or ask kids to go. Let's all do jumping jacks together right now. Yeah, I hadn't thought about that before, and I'm really glad you pointed that out. And I hear in your voice, similar to what we heard earlier, every district, especially on the East Coast, because it's a little bit of a different feel when we're talking to like Indianapolis or people down in Texas or parts of California that are really not very affected. You guys on the East Coast, New York, New Jersey, I mean, you went to war. You can hear it in your voice, and I'm proud of you as a leader. Just the way that you're talking right now tells me that people snap to and attention in terms of like, okay, there's somebody like, making the charge. Let's all follow him. Tell me a little bit about, the aspects of the coordination in that, because once you said we're going, let's go, then you had to like get the troops all sort of organized. What happened with that?
Yeah, so New Jersey as a whole, and of course we're always ranked pretty high nationally in the quality of education, really does a good job at a state level in terms of saying, you should really develop a plan in teams, and this was no exception. The state education department had us create subcommittee teams. So I'm really giving the state credit for this. This was not a district level initiative. Where we created 3 types of teams. One was, and I'm not going to give you the exact names because this is the national audience. I really just want you to know what the concepts were. One was a curriculum team, another was a facilities or buildings team, and another was like a social emotional wellness subcommittee. And these 3 subcommittees, what we did was we invited teachers. Now imagine this, it's the summer after a pandemic. So and a big one, like you said, we were hit hard here in New Jersey. And so there was you can imagine that some people might just want to say, I've had it, I'm done. I just need the summer and take a break from school, which we often do in a normal year. It recharges our battery summers. But in this year, it seemed even more significant. But yet, when I offered teachers to be part of these subcommittees to develop plans for how we would transition to the fall, there was 10 to 12. Remember, I told you there was about 120 faculty in the building. About 10 to 12 per subcommittee. So you're talking like a quarter of that contingent said, I want to be part of the subcommittees to help you develop a plan. And that was great because I'm not in a classroom. I haven't been in a classroom in 20 years. So I need to know from the teachers how they think this is going to look and feel, just as much as I can offer them the leadership perspective. And so I keep a very open line of communication in terms of that. And they were great. So I led the curriculum committee as the instructional leader of the building, and they just came up with some great plans and ideas. A lot of it was organized around PD, professional development. We offered a tremendous amount of professional development in the summer. We decided, normally what happens during the opening of school here is we have like one PD day before school starts. Well, we doubled that and made it 2 full days, and they needed it. They really needed it because, just to really get their brains wrapped around this. So that was one of the big things that we emphasized. And then this continuing PD, we knew when we were going to land, as I like to say, that we weren't going to land and just stay in that spot and say, this is working. We knew we were going to have to make some immediate adjustments. And therefore, that PD continues, as I said, with the hour and a half after every afternoon. So the way that the state engineered this, and of course, the facilities piece was significant because you're thinking about everything from social distancing. How are you going to transition kids between classes and ensure that they're socially distanced? How are you going to promote the scientifically based fact that masks work, and all this stuff, and painting social distancing markers? So that was, as you can imagine, a very involved process. But it worked, and it worked because we had a lot of involvement. We had a lot of teacher empowerment, and we also had community members involved in that. I should mention that there were also parents involved in that. So they were all part of this piece. And of course, I always like to say that committees are great because not only do they offer good ideas, but then they go out to the community and they say, hey, we had this great meeting and we talked about the following 3 things, and it's free PR. It's free advertising that people say, oh, they actually are trying to do something decent here, instead of just, oh, they're keeping everything secret. Like I say to people, go out and talk about it. Be transparent, because that's the kind of world we need to live in now, especially when we're dealing with something like this.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And when you're sort of, having to do so many non-normal things, the more hands on deck, the better. Glad to see you had parents step up. That's amazing. Okay, so then what about their involvement in hybrid and particularly remote? We've had reports, obviously Learning Council has been tracking, we've been running big national surveys. Last survey we ran before this tour, we surveyed our 215,000 readers and we had 27,000 responses back. And the fact is there was AWOL kids. Parents were, couldn't be reached, kids couldn't be reached. So tell me go a little bit deeper into that sort of aspect, because now you're not just leading your troops, your faculty, you're actually leading the field in a very active way, I'm sure.
Yes. So I think the best way to illustrate my response to that is with a little story.
Okay.
Earlier this week, a family came to the school and didn't speak English, and they misunderstood that they were to pick up we went one-to-one like many schools in the Northeast did with our computer devices. And so every student hypothetically should have a computer, but they, due to the language barrier, didn't know that and tried to come to the school, but it was too late and it was the wrong school to pick up the kid was in my school, but it was the wrong location to pick up the device. So I couldn't get a hold of the IT department, the computer department, in enough time to get a computer. And come to find out that this poor mother had taken a taxi here on her work break to get this computer, and we were saying, sorry, we can't help you. That's the kind of thing that drives me insane in terms of the kind of challenge you were describing. Here's a parent who's going out of her way, in spite of all the challenges she's up against, to try to figure this out. And we're saying, no, I can't accept that. So I had a translator come out and speak with the mom and her kids. And I said to them, look, this is your son. Oh, by the way, they also lost their father to COVID. So, I mean, just the perfect, example of, somebody that your heart goes out to. So I wanted them to know that while that child is hers when he's there, he's my kid when he's here, and he's part of this school community, and I'm going to treat him as my own. And I told her and this was last Friday, right before school started, and they were worried that he wouldn't have his device to do his work and start school. I said, on Tuesday, I'm going to get this device and I'm going to drive it over your house because I don't want you to take another taxi or worry about doing this on your break or anything. And people said, can you do that? And I said, I don't know, but I'm going to beg for forgiveness instead of ask for permission because it's the right thing to do. And I don't really care if someone says I shouldn't have done it. So I got the device and from technology, and I drove it over and I gave it to them. And I said, look, here's your device. And they were so happy. And I wasn't looking for accolades for that. I was modeling the behavior I wanted my staff to see, that I'm not too important as the leader of this school to not take on. And several people, when they heard I was doing this, said, oh, I'll drive that over for you. I said, I know you will. And I'm glad you would be willing to offer that. But I need to drive this over because I need to set the stage here. So I think families need to know we have that kind of accessibility with them. As big of a school in a district as East Brunswick is and Hammersfield Middle School is, it's important that they know we're still a family and that we're going to treat them like our own. And if we don't get that message across, and there's a million ways to do that because every school in the Northeast, at least, has people who speak a second language that can help people even with a language barrier, then we're making a tragic mistake because that's the kid we're missing. And that's where you start to see a gap widen because we're setting the stage for that gap. And that's an unacceptable gap for me. So I think that's probably the best example I can give you. And when people hear that story, and I don't tell the story, other people do now. Again, it's free advertising. They're like, that's really cool. I can do something like that to help families. So I think that's an important message to get out to the community, that we do have challenges, that it's important to work outside the box to address those challenges. We're not in a traditional environment anymore. Drive computers over. Do unique things that you never would have done before simply because we need to make sure people are still in a learning environment, and that more than anything, those that might be at the greatest risk because of a language barrier or whatever, we need to help them. We need to help them and go out of our way to do that.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It makes my mind go to the attractiveness of the institution when there's options. But I don't want to actually have you answer that yet, because I know you're going to join us on the panel, the last hour of this webinar event. Yep. And I'm going to bring that up with you and the other superintendents that are going to join, because we're in a moment of competitiveness like it's never been seen before. So you're actually paying attention to that. So I want to go to another part for right now, and that is, can you sort of list out what tech you had to pick up and get out, or did you go with what you already had, hardware and software wise? What happened in that dimension?
Yeah, so some schools had already gone to one-to-one, which made it much easier for them. We had not been one-to-one, so we quickly had to get, last spring, we have Chromebooks, like many schools. We had to get Chromebooks out to our students, and we did a pickup process, and we had them come to the school, and during certain windows, and of course, we also had to have them be wearing masks and washing their hands and staying socially distanced. So, but we did it, and we got those computers out, and it was the Chromebooks, and we're using Google Meet, which is a Google, to me, Google Meet, Teams, Zoom, it doesn't really matter to me which source you are using. You just have to determine a source and stick with it as a commonality. We can't be crossing over multiple platforms. And they're a lot like cars to me now. I mean, they're a dime a dozen, and they both get you to where you need to go. And yeah, some have advantages in other areas that don't, but you got to pick one and stick to it, and then give support. So it was the Chromebooks, and by proxy, Google products. I'm not trying to promote Google at all. I'm just saying that it was a sensible one for us, as I'm sure it is for many schools. And there are other products that other schools use, and I'm not married to any one. I just want one that is consistent for my school.
Yeah, and then what about other resources? I mean, one of the things that we keep hearing about is Learning Council, just because we're UI UX experts, we're software heads, is that it's prone to the bad filing habits of any one teacher. Can't find the documents, blah 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 blah. It's not really commercial grade organizational. It's a great starting point.
Hmm.
You have to go with it. Most schools are going with it. I think a little bit over 60% of the nation's schools have Google. But you still start running into those other problems when you start to mature in terms of your flexibility with content, because you run into filing structure issues.
Hmm.
So what have you learned so far from that? Because I mean, you kind of just like went, it's devices and then whatever we can get right, and then you increase sophistication over time. What have you run into so far?
You're asking about like types of resources we've decided to use, or just generally some of the ideas we came up with?
Yeah, just generally the overall structure, because like I said, you run into issues with Google, right? Like not early, because first people are learning how to use it, and then they start filing stuff and they can't find stuff again later, and you lose instructional time, or you run into things, right? But then you have other apps. So tell me a little bit about that.
Okay, yeah. So one of the things that we learned about during the subcommittees I described earlier. So a lot of people, I'm sure, have heard of things like Kahoot. So that we've been using that forever here in the district, and that's just a nice way to engage kids in almost like a trivia game review format. So that's a good way to either assess the understanding of kids or do a review game in preparation for an assessment. I also heard about some cool tools like one called Class Kick, which makes it really kind of intuitive for someone to sketch out organizationally. You talked about organizational challenges for kids and teachers, how to access information when you're screen sharing and when you're sending files out to kids to reference and things like that. Then, of course, there's good old-fashioned Google Docs and Google Forms. So those are some of the things that we've really directed them to, because like you said, we're one of those 60% that sticks with Google as a school right now. What's interesting about this district is that the whole district does not use Google. The secondary schools in this district are transitioning over to Windows-based products, Teams and Canvas and things like this. And so we've kind of got this dichotomy between the K-7 realm and then the secondary. But eventually we are going to transition over as well. But as we learned Google Meet and Google Classroom and Google Drive and all that last spring, we're sticking with that here at the middle school level, and just adding resources, like I said about that. There's also things. I'm trying to think of the name of the product. I'll think about it. Oh, Flipgrid, of course, is a great PBL based kind of an option that teachers can offer kids. And these are all. I'm not naming anything new, I think, but these are products that have been around, but they've been accentuated or obviously gained in notoriety because of our current circumstance and because we have to use that. The other thing that I mentioned that I emphasize to teachers and families is we really have to think much more in informal assessment. We can't be thinking so specifically in like a unit test. Not that we aren't giving them, but we need to be thinking about really assessing kids in different and less formal ways. And that can be done, either just from a check-in system. I referenced the app Class Kick and even Google Forms. I mean, there's lots of different ways to do that and just check in with kids. And so teachers should be that flexible and be thinking about how they can offer that kind of a service when they're working with kids.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, just when you start out, you got to do what you got to do. So I'm
Yeah.
glad you're flexible. I'm interested maybe to hear, later, not right now, but kind of why you're going to move off of Google and onto Microsoft. I'm seeing a lot of move to Microsoft. That's what the research is showing, and it has a lot to do with reduction of liability. So that's an interesting thing. But I also believe that kids should know all the tools. They don't know what they're going to run into when they graduate and try to go to work for someone, what the work world is using. So it gets, being flexible on those tools is huge. I'm just really proud of everything that you've done. I mean, You got devices out, you got people starting to use. What are can you tell me maybe a couple of stories about, what's going on the ground? More than the great story that you already told, the actual teaching and learning, kids using and accessing and reporting back. Because one of the things we see happening is some of the really quiet kids on campus that never raised their hand, never spoke up, now in digital remote, they're way more active. And then you have sort of some of the other kids, and I like to, and this is totally wrong of me to characterize it this way, but they were sports kids, right? They were aggressive, like personalities on campus, and they would always speak up. Now remotely, they're kind of quiet. What do you see?
Yeah, I mean, again, we only started 3 days ago with kids, but basically what I'm seeing and hearing as I'm visiting classrooms and I'm talking with teachers is that, it's all in a whole scale adjustment. And I do think you're seeing different kids be part of that process. Interestingly, I think what you're describing is kids who are comfortable with technology more than being sort of that in-person kind of a kid, and they're participating more. So it's kind of an interesting, it's like we're turning on our side some of the ways that we're seeing how kids respond. And again, remember, 12% of the kids are here, so that means roughly 18 kids, a large group of kids, are home every day. So the key there is, and I think long term, this will be one of the challenges we have to think about constantly, is how are we going to be continuing to both engage and informally assess those kids that are home? Know that, because you can't, as I like to say, you can't parent from the moon. You can't know that the kid's 100% engaged in the same way you can visually know in a classroom. So there's got to be some other ways to think about that. That's that outside the box thinking again. And I think that's going to develop over time. I think some really great ideas are going to come out of it that should also be carried out of the pandemic, And so those are some of
Yeah, I totally agree. And I love the discovery mode of your mind. And it's fantastic.
Organizations are utilizing tablets, laptops, and phones around the clock to improve employee and student outcomes. But what many fail to consider are the hidden costs and consequences associated with time-wasting mobile device management, an increased risk of data breaches for devices that aren't physically secured, and device downtime due to uncharged, forgotten, lost, or broken devices. That's why we've created the Fuel Tower, powered by lockncharge Cloud, a complete hardware and software solution to efficiently charge, store, secure, and manage workflow for mobile devices. The Tower and lockncharge Cloud eliminate many of the manual processes for check-in, check-out, break, fix, loaner devices, or any other shared device program. The Tower also provides secure, on-demand, or overnight charging. Streamlining these processes will save your employees and IT teams considerable time every year. The key to these efficiencies is found in the lockncharge Cloud platform. lockncharge Cloud enables administrators to control towers from one centralized web-based portal, no matter the location of the administrator or the location of your towers. Administrators can manage who is allowed to access specific towers and bays, and can cascade settings to multiple towers at once. Organizations can take device management to the next level by utilizing Cloud API and webhooks to integrate lockncharge Cloud into external or existing IT infrastructure. An optional network kit allows you to add a network switch so that you can enable device updates and re-imaging while securely stored inside the Fuel Tower. This smart charging tower and cloud platform is designed to keep your mobile workforce working. How will you save your organization time and money by leveraging a Fuel Tower? Contact lockncharge to learn more.